some of the music that you are hearing, Cesare Evora. If you are interested in having access to this playlist, please contact our team. I welcome everyone to this webinar where we will present our new initiative. It's Reconnecting African Rivers, Dam Removal Africa, as a tool to improve river connectivity. I'm Ruben Rocha. I'm the Dam Removal Europe and Dam Removal Africa project manager, and thank you all for your presence. First of all, I would like to tell you that we have simultaneous translation. If you want to have access to the translation, please go into this bottom here and click down where you see the interpretation down below, and you can select your language, English, French, or stay in the main room as original audio if you speak both languages. Pour le français, vous pouvez choisir quelle langue vous voulez écouter et choisir ici en bas en cliquant sur l'interprétation. Vous pouvez choisir anglais ou français. If you want to get in touch with colleagues or ask questions, please go to chat and put your questions. We will be checking the chat constantly for important questions that could be answered by our speakers or even by the team from World Fish Migration Foundation. This webinar is organized by the World Fish Migration Foundation. It's an NGO based in Netherlands, but working in many places, including European countries, African countries, and other countries. We are sponsored. This webinar is sponsored by the Mulago Foundation, with the kind support from WWF, University of Addis Ababa, South African National Parks, and Resources Legacy Fund. Adela, I don't know if you want to share the Mentimeter to see where our colleagues in this webinar are coming from. We had this webinar, this Mentimeter going on to see where you are coming from. And as I said in the beginning, I'm Ruben. I'm from Cabo Verde. I'm based in Portugal right now. You have the link to the Mentimeter in the chat. Please go and tell us where you're coming from. We can start now with our first speaker. I invite Dr. Paula Kaumbu. Is one of the African best-known wildlife conservationists. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Wildlife Direct, a nonprofit organization based in Kenya, which aims to connect people to nature and wildlife so that they treasure it and act to conserve it. Thank you, Dr. Paula. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ruben. And Karibu, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. This is so exciting. I'm so happy to see nearly 100 people have joined this webinar. That's phenomenal. I am sitting in Nairobi, Kenya, at home. It's a beautiful sunny day. I hope that you all are having an equally gorgeous day as we are here in Nairobi. I live in a part of the city just south of the city, and I grew up here in this actual house. Just nearby, we were, as children, we used to go and run around in the wilderness. The name of my area is called Mwitu, which means the bush or the wilderness. And it really was quite wild. And about less than a kilometer away, just north of me, is a small stream. And that stream is one of the source rivers of a major river that traverses across the entire country. As a child, we used to go down there with all my siblings. We would take off all our clothes and jump in the water, swim, get very muddy, catch fish, crabs. and just, spend our holidays enjoying that water. And today you can't even get to that river because there's so many barriers in the way. You can't reach that stream. And even if you get to the stream, you probably don't want to get into that water. The water is heavily, heavily polluted now. The crabs have gone, the fish are gone. People wash their vehicles. People are farming along the edge of the river. And some people have even been obstructing the water. So the water level is very low. And as this river flows and reaches the Athi River, which is the major river which crosses Kenya, there are places where the water is no longer flowing. In fact, scientific studies have shown that there are places where the original water no longer flows, and the only water in the river is actually sewage from the towns and villages along the pathway of this, what was once a very magnificent river. Now, what's happened to that river is very personal to me because this was the home of the otters and all these animals and birds that we really loved. And this is something which we're seeing all across Africa. And, this idea of reconnecting African rivers to me is very, very important and very personal. The Athi River flows, eastwards down to the Indian Ocean, and it's parallel to another major river called the Tana River. And one of my experiences when I was doing my research, I studied monkeys in the forests that line the Tana River. And that river is another example of a river in distress. There are now 7 major dams on that river. And the water, the dams are justified by our government in Kenya. And just like all the dams all across Africa, we're building dams like they're going out of fashion, the dams are built because we're told that this is good for green power. It's good for flood control. It will help people who live downstream, and it's really good for food security. And this narrative that we are told is a very one-sided narrative. This is the narrative that we have been told, and we have been persuaded, and enormous amounts of government money, our tax money, is spent on the construction of these gigantic dams. They are no longer just small little concrete things across our rivers. We're now talking of mega dams. And, for example, the mega dam in Ethiopia, which is causing not only environmental challenges for Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, but is also causing a major political crisis for that region. But really the concern that we don't hear about is the concern about the animals in the water. We sometimes talk about pollution. We talk about what we see, plastic bottles floating around on our rivers, and young people, whenever there's a cleanup day, they go down to our rivers and pick up all the bottles and bring them back and make a big, show and tell about how much litter they collected from the rivers. And that's because we have, although culturally we really revered our rivers, they were very blessed. They were considered, given by God and places to go and worship. Today, rivers across Africa and even in other parts of the world have become dustbins or sewers. I've seen this not only in Africa, I've seen it in Asia. When we were filming Secrets of the Elephants, we filmed in Borneo, and we are filming in this beautiful river, the Kinabantang, which runs through the Bornean forest, and the Asian elephants, which come down to the river and swim across the river. It's a phenomenon that attracts millions of tourists every year. But as you're going down the river in a boat, you see huge bags of trash floating past. And that's really how people in that area deal with their home trash. They just take the garbage bag and throw it into the river, and then it goes floating out to sea and probably ends up back on our shores here in East Africa. And what we're seeing is what's on the surface of the water. We're not thinking about what is in the water, the fish. And if I come back to this beautiful river here near my home, the part of the Mbakathi River, which Mbakathi or Mpakasi River in Maasai, or Mbagathi in Kikuyu. It's a river whose name means the river that never stops flowing. And this river has stopped flowing because of all of the barriers and obstructions that are along its route. The same for the Tana River. There are places where that river cannot flow properly. And as a result, any fish that need to move up and down these rivers are in jeopardy. We've already seen many species disappear from the Tana River, which has the 7 dams. But the Athi River, which is still continuous all the way to the Kenya coast, you'll actually see fish in Nairobi that originated from the Kenyan coast. They probably came from as far away as Madagascar, and those are the eels. And very few Kenyans are even aware of these animals. And this is why I say that the narrative is really important. There are so many different species of fish. In Kenya alone, I think we have over 120 different species of freshwater fish in our rivers. Most Kenyans have never seen them. We only know 2 or 3 types of fish, which are the fish we eat: the lungfish, the catfish, the Nile perch, and the tilapias. But there are so many other amazing species of fish that live in our rivers and need to migrate up and down the rivers in order to spawn and to get back to their breeding grounds later, or their feeding grounds. All of these fish are at risk because of the development of dams for energy. And the latest and maybe most concern to me is proposals of several new dams on the Mara River. The Mara River is the famous river that the wildebeest cross between Kenya and Tanzania. This river is connected to Lake Victoria, and there are hundreds of species of fish which use Lake Victoria and move up the Mara River. And you can imagine what will happen if we dam that river. We will actually destroy many species of fish, and they will be prevented from breeding, and therefore we may actually lose them from their existence. They may even go extinct, because many of these fish are unique and endemic to that area. One example is the elephant fish. There's an amazing fish. It's about, I don't know if you guys can see, but it's big. It's a big fish, and it has a very long snout, and it's called the elephant fish. It actually looks, funnily enough, like an elephant. So the urgency of dealing with these dams, to me, is critical. We have many, many dams across our continent that are threatening nature already, threatening the fish migration pathways. We don't take it seriously. We think about migration pathways for wildebeest, elephants, birds, but who has been really talking about the migration of fish? It's not something that has really hit the headlines, something that we need to work on very, very seriously. We need to not only bring down dams, especially those dams that are no longer working, and there are many of them, because hydroelectric dams are failing all across the continent. They're failing because they're getting silted. They are failing because of sand abstraction and the destruction of the ecosystems, and also climate change. It means there's less water coming into those dams. They're no longer providing the services that they were built for. So we need to bring down those dams and reconnect those rivers. But in addition, I think we have to have another message that goes out very strongly, which is, let's stop building these dams. If dams are being built for energy, then let's find alternative sources of energy. I think the narrative that we need to now start putting out there in the form of stories, education, radio, podcasts, and films needs to be that there are 2 sides of the coin to dams. So far, most Africans have heard only one side. The dams are good. Dams equals development. Dams is progress. Well, we really need to have the other side of this story. We need to take responsibility for communicating that other side of the story and talk about how dams destroy nature, destroy livelihoods, and threaten people, especially those who live downstream. I'll give the example of the Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia on the Nile. The Nile is the most famous river on earth. And yet people in Egypt are threatened by the construction of this mega dam. And as a result, the Egyptians believe that they could lose up to 50% of their agricultural potential downstream just because of these dams on the Nile. So I want to end by just saying that I'm very, very happy to be here today. I'm really interested in hearing what all the other speakers have to say. I would love to be part of the team or the brainstorming around how do we change the narrative? How do we create a massive movement in Africa to address the challenge of dams, to rethink the narrative around dams, and how do we make fish migrations a part of our normal communications in conservation? I'll tell you that in Kenya, when we talk about conservation, most people think of the big 5, elephants, buffaloes, hippos, giraffes, lions, and all the big animals. Fish are not even considered part of the wildlife when it comes to the wildlife legislation in our country. Fish are considered in a totally different ministry, the fisheries ministry, because fish are considered part of food and food production and trade. And so this is why I think we have a very big responsibility here to communicate, to articulate, to provide information, to educate not just our children and our people, but also our politicians, the people who are making the laws, and the people who are implementing those laws. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paula. What a great message to start this webinar. And I would like to touch in few points. One of them is what you've said. We are still implementing measures and building structure that was the idea that started long ago, and we are still believing that the same structures will provide us water until the end of our lives. Dams will not do that, because dams, they don't build water, they don't create water. They are just stopping a natural flowing river in a specific place. We are just saving water in small boxes. And this message that you brought us in this beginning is really what we are trying to bring to people, to inspire them to understand that there are other solutions up there. There are other solutions for water for agriculture, water for energy. We can work on this and try to not commit the same mistakes that European countries did, the same mistake that US did, building dams everywhere because we wanted more water available, we wanted more energy. We can do this in a better way in Africa and keep progressing, keep developing, but we should learn with others' mistakes and not commit the same ones. Thank you so much for your presentation. I call our next speakers. We will have a moment to have questions from the chat. Our next speaker is Dumisani Kosa. I'm sorry if I'm spelling your name wrong, but you can correct myself.
That's correct.
Yes, it's a freshwater ecologist from the South African National Parks, dedicated to conserving freshwater ecosystems at the Kruger National Park. South Africa is a pioneer in starting to remove barriers in Africa. We already have river barriers being removed in Africa. And Dr. Dumisani is one of the persons working on this. Dr. Dumisani, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad to be invited to come and talk. Can I confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, it's
Can you
good.
all see my screen? Okay, thank you so much. Let me just try and remove this bit here. Okay, cool. So just to start off, I'm just going to give some information to why the Kruger National Park is removing some dams. Just to give a brief context as to where the Kruger National Park is. The Kruger National Park is part of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Conservation Areas. And our water resources are shared across different countries, including Mozambique and Zimbabwe. The rivers, some of them, they start in South Africa and then they go into Mozambique. Some of these rivers include the Sabi, the Olifants, Letaba, and Ruvubu. So we have two systems, the Limpopo up in the north and the Nkomati system in the south. So to give you some context, the rivers that are running through the Kruger National Park, the perennial river systems, they contribute somewhere around like 600 kilometers in a stretch. So that is a very important numbers. And
Donc, il s'agit vraiment de cours d'eau très importants. Nous avons beaucoup d'eau en termes de volume et il s'agit d'une des sources très importantes en aval pour les différents pays voisinants. Donc, lorsque nous regardons les différents points, il y a à peu près 30 kilomètres de systèmes de fleuves. Donc, comme vous pouvez l'imaginer, des chiffres très importants en termes de volume d'eau. Et tous ces systèmes de fleuves présentent une très forte, une très riche biodiversité. Il s'agit d'ailleurs d'une des sources les plus importantes. Nous avons plus de 140 espèces de poissons migratoires dans ce système de fleuves. Et à mesure que vous allez plus en aval, eh bien, cela représente des aspects importants pour la sécurité alimentaire, l'approvisionnement en eau. Et donc, voici un peu le contexte de nos systèmes fluviaux. Donc maintenant, pour vous parler des différents barrages, le développement des infrastructures en eau, eh bien, il faudrait que nous allions un peu en arrière, que nous allions dans le passé et que nous puissions comprendre la distribution de ces systèmes fluviaux et comment est-ce que ces barrages ont été mis en œuvre. Quand vous regardez la carte à droite, vous pouvez voir que nous avons développé différents types de structures. Ici, il y a des chiffres. Je devrais tout d'abord commencer par dire que si vous regardez à gauche, la carte de gauche, il y a la distribution naturelle de différentes espèces animales. Donc, ces différentes espèces se déplacent d'est en ouest afin d'avoir accès à ces ressources en eau. Et nous avons donc développé des points d'eau afin de pouvoir attirer les touristes, afin qu'ils puissent également voir les espèces dans leur état naturel. Et souvent, nous oublions que dans cette agrégation, nous modifions également le paysage, étant donné que cela favorise à la dégradation de certains points d'eau à mesure que les espèces se déplacent maintenant vers différents points d'eau. Lorsque nous regardons le développement des structures de gestion d'eau, il y a eu une période où nous avons fortement développé ces infrastructures. DWS, le département de l'hygiène et de l'eau, a développé différents barrages. Et il est important de noter que certains barrages ont été développés sans prendre en compte la manière dont ces barrages vont impacter ou allaient impacter les écosystèmes. À l'époque, un écologiste avait été nommé pour gérer le département des forêts, des eaux et des forêts, et d'évaluer l'impact de ces systèmes d'approvisionnement en eau allaient impacter les écosystèmes. Et c'est là que nous nous sommes rendus compte que certains systèmes sont redondants. Ils ne servent pas vraiment un objectif majeur. Et comme vous pouvez le voir ici, eh bien, nous avons eu une nouvelle proposition pour démanteler ces barrages. Il était également important de noter que les activités de démantèlement de barrages, laissez-moi peut-être vous donner un exemple. Ici, comme vous pouvez voir à l'écran, nous pouvons voir qu'il y a différents points de forage qui ont été créés à partir des années 90. Et ces forages-là nous ont poussé à nous poser la question d'où est-ce que nous pouvons les déplacer, peut-être qu'ils ne sont plus importants, etc. Donc, nous avons fermé certains points de forage, afin d'enfermer certains trous de forage, car nous nous sommes rendus compte qu'ils étaient redondants. Et cela a permis également de rétablir les points d'eau originaux. Nous avons également essayé de voir comment est-ce que les espèces endémiques étaient importantes et où est-ce qu'elles étaient en perdition. Donc,
upstream to complete their life cycles. So some of the life history strategies of some species are affected if you are having barriers. And then it is also worse when you are having a seasonal river that is only flowing at certain times, and then you are having barriers in those systems. And those barriers, they don't serve much of a purpose because most of the time the system is dry. So they become redundant. So it is also important that we look at the system, the redundant structures. They need to be breached out, they need to be removed, because these sections, they often serve as refuge for the endangered species. When we move on, as I've mentioned, some of these structures, they even get breached by the flooding. So if you look at in the Kruger National Park, we are prone to cyclones as with Mozambique. So we also get the back end of the cyclone, and then they end up breaching some of these structures. Some of the dams, they got breached, like for example, with Canidwad in Chwezi. And then, so the structure serves no purpose, as you can see on the figure on your top left, that the river has changed its course and that it is serving as a redundant structure. So it was better that we remove it. And then if you look at the bottom left picture, you can see that the river system is clear. And if you are having good flows, then the river will be able to flow well. And then the same we did with in the Litawa systems, where we removed the Mingerhood weir. And these are good implementations, and this is done in collaboration with the South African National Defence Force Special Forces, and then they help out in removing this redundant structure. And the other thing is, after the removal of these dams, we are having BSP who come to do the rehabilitations of these systems. And this is a good initiative that I hope other countries can follow. So just to give you some idea as to where we are at the moment, I think this was last updated in 2021. The map on your left shows the closed weirs and dams in the systems, and then the remaining ones are still open. There are some plans to continue looking at the structures that are redundant. And as I've mentioned in my opening slides, I mentioned that we do have the gauging weirs in some of our river systems to understand the flow, how much flow is in the system. And these gauging weirs, they also serve as to understand our EWR in the system and how much water is going through to our neighboring countries. As I've mentioned, that the Kruger National Park is having a lot of transboundary river systems. So some of these structures will remain in the system because we are using them to gauge our river flow and to also understand how much is in our system. So what the progress so far, this is what we have removed. It is a bit lot, and hopefully we'll continue to understand our systems, and then we'll remove the redundant structure. And I should mention that this is a collaboration with the SANDF, as I've mentioned, and also we are including the conservation services to guide us as to what is in our system, how can we manage them, what can we remove, and after the removal, we as scientists, we need to go back there and try to see, is our system responding to this dam removal? What are we gaining? Are we having recolonization of the migratory species? How is our system doing? So what we do is to look at the hydrology. We're looking at flow and looking at the species that respond to flow. Like, for example, fish are good indicators of flow. So we also look at the species, and then we also look at water quality by assessing our macroinvertebrates, and we also look at the vegetation in our system. So I'll end off by showing a little video. I think might have seen way better videos, but this is when we're moving the Mingerhood. We are in the Litawa section. It was a good experience. Robin was there, I was not, but yeah, I hope I'll attend one of the removals in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dumisani. I will jump to our next speaker. I've seen that we have a lot of questions in the chat, but we
Sure,
will
thank you so
respond
much.
to them as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I invite Dr. Abebe Getahun. He's a professor of aquatic biology at the Department of Zoological Science in Addis Ababa University, Ethiopia. His research is focused on diversity, conservation, and utilization of aquatic organisms, especially fish. And he was the president of the Pan-African Fish and Fisheries Association from 2008 to 2013. In addition, from 2007 till now, he is the regional co-chair, Northern East Africa, for the Wetlands International IUCN Strategic Group on Freshwater Fish Specialist Group.
Thank you very much for the introductions and welcome everyone. I think I have sent my presentation to you, or I can probably share it from here. Is that shared?
Yes, we can see your presentation, Dr.
Okay. So this presentation was prepared by 5 colleagues, including myself, and 3 institutions, probably 4, including the World Fish Migration Foundation. So Atsa University, Bardar University, and University of Gondar are involved. And Gzacho from University of Gondar, Muyellet from Bardar University, Fasil and Fellagush from Bardar University again were involved. Before I go to the problems of our dams, I would like to give you some highlight on the Lake Tana, and the important fish that inhabit this lake and the tributary rivers. We call Lake Tana, which is the largest lake in Ethiopia, the blue heart of Ethiopia, for 3 reasons. One, if you look at the shape of the lake, it's heart-shaped. And second, if you look at the position of the lake in Ethiopia, its thoracic position, heart position here. And most importantly, the importance of this lake is very high. It's the largest lake in Ethiopia. It has fisheries importance. It has about 28 fish species, 21 of which are endemic. And out of this, 18 labiobarb species, which are the only remaining cyprinid species flock in the world. So they have evolutionary importance and economic importance as well. Moreover, they migrate every year to tributary rivers from Lake Tana to breed for spawning purposes. And while migrating to the tributary rivers and even inhabiting the lake, they are faced with several threats. I would simply mention, because most of them are very obvious, watershed perturbation, deforestation is a major problem around Lake Tana. Unregulated water abstraction is again another threat. Wetland drainage around the lake for agricultural purposes. Pollution, especially coming from wastes of unregulated wastes from nearby recreation centers, including hotels and restaurants. Water has been recently introduced into the lake, and this has been a great problem and obstructing the migrating species, especially from aggregating at the river mouths, where the rivers join the lake, because before migration, the fish species aggregate at the river mouths. And this water hyacinth blocks this aggregation and blocks their migratory route. And the other thing is illegal, uncontrolled, and unreported fishing with unregistered fishermen, illegal fishermen, unregulated gears, unregulated fishing seasons. These have caused devastating effect on the labiobarba species in particular, but for all species of fish in the lake as a whole. You can see these pictures, people coming out in mass when the fish are getting into the smaller streams and migrate upstream for spawning because they can get them easily in mass. So they use every item they have, including sticks, spears, stones, to kill them. And you can see here, they block the migration so that they catch them in mass. These are all threats for labiobarba species. Lake Tana and its surroundings around Bahar Dar, that is a town which is found at the coast of Lake Tana, is considered to be a development corridor. It's considered to be a development corridor by the regional government, and hence several development activities are taking place around the rivers and tributary rivers and the lake itself. So dams and irrigation weirs are numerous. It's about 12 irrigation weirs are constructed around the lake on the tributary rivers. Obviously, we are not against dams and irrigation weirs because we know that they are very important. We are a developing country. We need hydroelectric production, irrigation purposes. We need that. Water and sediment regulation, that's very also important contribution of dams. For the fisheries, reservoir formation would be useful for the fisheries as well. So it has economic returns. What we are saying is we need to sustainably construct these dams and weirs and use them wisely. And this is a river before construction of Rib Dam, flowing smoothly, and the fish were migrating upstream without any problem. But after the construction of Rib Dam here, there was a problem for the fish to go upstream because this obstructs their migration. So as you can see, there are about 12 different structures around the lake constructed on the tributary rivers. These are weirs and dams. So probably more are to come. So what should we do? Well, we have been advising the government to construct fish ladder. One participant was asking about the presence of fish ladders on these dams. Fortunately, this has been constructed on RIP, which I just showed you, but it has not been so far functional. We are trying our best to convince people to make it functional, but we need to struggle. We have been working together with the regional government to remove water hyacinth as much as possible using machines and also human labor, community involvement. And we have also suggested that aquaculture could be an alternative solution because the pressure would be reduced from the natural fisheries or capture fisheries if we have aquaculture ponds around the lake. In worst case scenarios, together with graduate students, we have also devised innovative methods of breeding these fish because they have to migrate upstream to breed. They cannot breed within the lake. They cannot breed within ponds. So what should we do if we cannot, mitigate these obstructions by dams and weirs? So we have devised artificial insemination of this group of fish, cryopreservation of their gametes, and we have also gone as far as constructing emulation structures, like the pond is serving as the lake, and this structure is serving as river, and we have tried to cheat essentially the fish to go up and breed within these canals, assuming that they got oxygenated and gravel-filled rivers. So this is in worst case scenario. We have to think of worst case scenarios because we don't want to lose these fish. And as you all know, awareness creation, education is very important in conservation. We need to teach the community, we need to teach the policymakers, we need to make them aware of the dangers looming over these fish. So we have been participating in World Fish Migration Day starting from 2014 when it started for the first time up to 2022. And probably this year we would also think of organizing one event in 2024. But in 2014, we have marched across the streets of Bardar and, tried um, to publicize the importance of this unique group of fish. In 2016, there was competition of locally made boats and running on the streets of Bardar. 2018, we were involved in removing water hyacinth from tributary rivers at the river mouth. In 2020, we have been to one of the candidate dams that need to be demolished. This is obsolete dam. It's not of use this time. And we celebrated that and bringing representatives from different sectors of the society. In 2022, we have gone to Rip Dam, which I showed you earlier. And this dam and its surroundings were very much degraded. And we have tried to show people how degraded these areas are and prone to sedimentation and probably shorten the time, the lifespan of the reservoir. And we try to plant trees around the reservoir. We have also tried to profile, especially one species is endangered by IUCN, four are vulnerable. So we try to profile them in the official stamp of the government of Ethiopia. And we have also written a book on fish of Lake Tana, a guidebook with my colleague. And I have also produced a book on freshwater fish of Ethiopia, diversity and utilization. And we have emphasized the need for conservation of this important group of fish. Finally, I will come to the two dams. One is Megach Dam. This was constructed 15 years ago. It's located at Megach River, and it was not functional since construction. Why? It's because of design problem, as we are told. And I think there is also a problem of sedimentation within around the dam area, and people are complaining about that. So it has not been functional since construction for 15 years, mind you. And the other one is Galda River, where we celebrated the World Fish Migration Day in 2020. And this was constructed 10 years ago, and it's not so far functional, it's obsolete. So it has to be demolished. That's our thinking. But when we think this, we have to present it.
Bon, c'est notre point de vue, mais c'est à nous de présenter cela et de l'argumenter et de pouvoir convaincre les autorités. Heureusement, la Fondation mondiale pour la migration des poissons est venue en Éthiopie pour pouvoir contribuer dans cet effort de démantèlement de barrières obsolètes, des barrières qui ne sont pas fonctionnelles, des barrières qui créent des obstructions aux poissons migrateurs. Donc, et aussi, avec le WFM, d'amorcer un mouvement de suppression de barrages en Afrique. Toujours en termes d'efforts collaboratifs, nous voudrions organiser un atelier de sensibilisation en Éthiopie. Et pour cet atelier, il y aura la présence des participants, d'autorités fédérales, le ministère de l'eau, de l'énergie, le ministère de l'agriculture, l'Institut biodiversité de l'Éthiopie, les instituts de recherche et de hautes études. Nous avons également prévu la participation des autorités au niveau régional. J'espère que nous pourrons organiser cet atelier. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention. Nous voudrions vous remercier, Dr. Abebe. Maintenant,
Tawan is asking if there is any known database of list of migratory fishes in Africa. If our speakers do have an idea of database of migratory species in Africa, please respond to Tawan's questions. If not, we can just try to do some research and identify any potential database and share with you and the others via email.
Maybe I could say something on this issue of the database of fish. There's a very big project that National Geographic has been doing in the Okavango Delta, studying the fish of all of the tributaries of the Okavango. And that project was very successful in discovering new species of fish. And so it's not necessarily migratory fish, but all fish. Our freshwater fish in Africa, I think, are not as well known as, and there are probably many unknown species or unrecognized or unrecorded in science species. They're probably known by local people, but not known in the traditional science. But I've also just come back from UK, from the museum there, the Natural History Museum. They have a vast collection. And so the question about the migratory species or species of fish of Africa, I think that both the museum in London, and there's also a very big museum of freshwater fish from Africa. I think it's in Belgium. And I think that these are the places where we can probably get a lot more information. And finally, Rolex has just funded a huge project called the Spine of Africa. And anybody here who's working on any of the waterways, I think it's specifically around the Congo rivers, but I think it's many of the other major rivers, all of the 4 major rivers of Africa. They will be doing expeditions and research along those rivers. And again, that team is led by National Geographic with many African ichthyologists, although I think that they have very few. So if there are any ichthyologists in this group, please reach out to me, because I would love to see more Africans and fewer of the Americans and the Europeans who are leading these projects. Let's get more Africans involved in doing this kind of work. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Paulo. Another question, this one is for Domisani. Are there any reports or website published papers about the barriers that South African national parks have removed?
At the moment, I don't think we have any reports. It is just we just have the list that I've showed you. That's what we are having. Maybe one day we'll publish the list of the barriers that have been removed in the park, and then people will know. There was also another question about the ladders in the dams. I think Angelica has answered that. There are some ladders, the fish ladders in our weirs, but we still need to check if they are functional. So the problem is when we are having very low flow in the rivers. So they might not be as functional if we're having very low flow.
Perfect, thank you. I will go through another question and then we jump to another speaker. Which exact species of Labiobarbus is threatened as per the IUCN Red List in Lake Tana? This one is for Dr. Abebe.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Labiobarbus macrophthalmus is an endangered species, and Labiobarbus gorgoari, Labiobarbus crassibarbis. 4 others are vulnerable.
Perfect, thank you. If you have more questions, keep adding them to the chat and we will try to respond as we go. If we don't manage to respond all of them during the webinar, we will respond via email. Our next speaker is Eric O'Hare, is the leader of WWF Blue Heart of Africa initiative, responsible for providing freshwater technical program development, business development, advocacy, and communication support to 10 countries office and 7 transboundary landscapes where WWF implements water resource management in Africa. Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ruben. Hello, everybody. I will be making this presentation on behalf of a team which is leading the Connected Rivers of Resilience Initiative under the team lead of Michelle Thieme, who is part of this audience. So as we are done, we'll be hopeful to handle any questions that will be coming afterwards. I will be speaking to you on the status of the free-flowing rivers globally, but also with some narrowed focus in Africa, where the Connected Rivers of Resilience also has a priority focus in terms of our work programming, just to address the barriers to the free flow of our rivers. And just to draw us back, is just a teaser in terms of what's really a free-flowing river in our own basic understanding. And what I gathered as I was preparing for this discussion is a number of attributes that I would really love to share with you. And the first thing is that a free-flowing river is one which is largely unaffected by human-made changes to its flow and connectivity. That the water, silt, and other natural materials within the river can move along unobstructed, and that animals such as river dolphin and migratory fish that a number of speakers have already alluded to can swim up and downstream at will. And therefore, with this kind of attributes of a free-flowing river, the Connected River of Resilience, which is a WWF program, has been looking into how do we maintain these rivers and ensure that the threats and barriers to the free flow of these rivers, are addressed through different programming activities. Ruben, I don't know why my screen is not moving, but I hope it's now moving.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And so in this slide, we're just trying to look across the value chain in terms of how do we benefit as humanity, as nature, as ecosystems, as biodiversity from the free flow of rivers. What value and attributes do we get when our rivers are flowing? We are looking at, for instance, free-flowing rivers being able to provide habitat for species to move upstream and downstream, such as the Irrawaddy dolphins. We are also looking at values being derived from free-flowing rivers, which provide habitat for our fish stock. And in parts like Africa, fish, especially riverine fisheries, are really key, for instance, for nutrition. But we also need to look at fish as a resource, as a natural asset, and how do we protect? And therefore, the free flow rivers provide fish with habitat, and tens and millions of people depend on these fisheries. But they also provide a healthy habitat for fish, and their natural variability is important for fish to travel upstream to breed. And we've seen and we've had Dr. Bede, alluding to how fish migrate and move upstream so that they can breed to maintain the population and to be able to grow. Free-flowing rivers are also able to provide and create healthy floodplains. And in many parts of the world, floodplains are really a source of agriculture, where tens and thousands of people farm during dry seasons, but the floodplains are also, a source a buffer when it rains and we are faced with flash floods. Free-flowing rivers provide a balance for nutrients and carry sediments downstream, including to deltas, where we are challenged with the phenomenon of rising seawater levels. And finally, they are also very valuable in terms of providing us with our cultural values, where many important places, especially places of worship, our beautiful shrines are located near these iconic free-flowing rivers. And therefore, we are really looking into, beyond the natural protection, beyond just the artificial economic development that we drive from rivers. How can we maintain that balance through the values that we drive from? In this slide, what we are seeing here are the priority areas and geographies where the Connected Rivers of Resilience is conducting work. About 8 geographies, 8 main basins globally, from the Balkans to the Amazon, to the Irrawaddy and Salween, to the eastern and western Himalayas, to the Lower Mekong, to the Kaza and its headwaters, to the Luangwa in Africa. And therefore, we are looking at, for instance, within the Amazon, where we are working and to maintain, this basin as a host. It hosts 4 of the top 10 longest free-flowing rivers globally. Within Luangwa, for instance, in Africa, the work there is to ensure that we maintain this basin as a lifeline communities and wildlife within the Southern Africa region. In the Lower Mekong, which we know is the rice basket of the world, and also providing, the base for fish. There is work there going on, and therefore this is basically just to show you the spread of the work that WWF through this very, very key initiative is delivering. And to the topic which we really wanted to show, because people have been asking questions about the repositories and the databases where we could be able to interact, do research, be able to have conversations in terms of engaging with policy from an evidence base. WWF and partners have been developing a database which is open source, where we can visit and we can be able to interact with the nature in terms of how the global map provides for the free flow of rivers. What is their status? And this is the link. I just want to show you here. So you can move and look at this database, and it categorizes free-flowing rivers in terms of river status, in terms of the dominant pressures, in terms of river connectivity, how fragmented the river is, and the connectivity, for instance, if you're looking at, for instance, connectivity status index, we are looking at anything above 99 is considered really highly free-flowing. As you move down to what is below 35%. And you can see, for instance, if we zoom out, how Africa, for instance, the greens are areas where we have free-flowing rivers. The reds are where we have our rivers highly affected, either through dams, and we'll also be showing you, for instance, the interconnectivity between the free flow of river status and the dams which are planned or existing. And go back to the presentation. So in this slide, you can see, for instance, the demarcation where a river between 500 to 1,000 kilometers is considered a long river. A river which is between 1,000 and plus is considered very long. A river which is between 100 to 500 kilometers is considered as a medium river, and a short river is that which falls between 10 kilometers to 100 kilometers. And this is the global map how, the shape and patterns of our rivers are with the threats that they face, especially damming, for hydropower and for water storage. And this is more in terms of Africa, where we are also, interlaying the map with the dams. And what you can see here, the black in color are the dams which have been planned. You can see within the Southern Africa region, a lot of dams planned, some scattered in the West Africa. In the Congo region, you can see some dams planned. Again, if you move to Northern Africa, you can see up there, Tunisia, Morocco, some in Algeria, some very many dams which have been planned, and existing are the ones in yellow. You can see, especially in the sub-Saharan part of Africa, the central part of Africa, a good number of dams which are existing. And here again, the other attributes which we're looking at is how to, just interlay that with the free flow of river status, very long, medium, short. Again, you can see within the Congo basin a good number of rivers. If you move down here, for instance, the Kaza area, where Angola plays headwaters to Luangwa, Minto, Kavango rivers, there are a lot of dams, but again, you're still seeing some reminiscent of features of free-flowing rivers. And that's really the clarion call, is that we can maintain the advocacy which, for instance, Dr. Paula is talking about, to show that the narrative that there is more to the economic sense of infrastructure development. There is more to maintaining our natural assets for posterity of humanity and nature itself. And we as WWF, we've also, with our dams and infrastructure programming work, which is looking at how do we, influence at policy level, both from inside WWF, but also engaging with external partners, policy, government, both at national, regional level, and international, other private sector players. We'll be looking into the issue of the need for energy, and how we can have an energy transition that is meeting the requirements of ensuring that we maintain the free flow of our rivers. And therefore, we talk of the low cost, the low carbon, and the low conflict. And here we're just looking at engaging the WWF network and other outside players in terms of how do we influence, for instance, areas like in Africa, where still the demand for energy and an energy mix, which also meets the demands of the continent for both economic and human development. But how do we ensure that that energy transition is that which is just, and especially, for instance, looking at how do we protect the free flow of our rivers for the very important values that we've already alluded to. This is just some anecdotes in terms of conversations that we've had as a network, as an organization, looking across board from Africa, Asia, America, Europe. Ruben, you're leading the work on dam removal, and we are now holding conversations, including, designing programs. How do we marshal, a mass movement across, for instance, Africa, where organizations appreciate that we are really threatened in terms of our needs for energy, our needs for water security, our need for water for agriculture, and water for even human use. How do we, interplay that and ensure that our governance and management frameworks address an energy transition, a water security arrangement that obeys the rules of nature? And you can see, for instance, Africa, varied comments, people are saying, yes, we should support small-scale hydropower as potential is great, and there is a huge lack of energy. When you look at Asia, people, when asked whether they believe WWF should support the creation and use of hydropower capacity, people are saying yes, others are saying no. When you look at what is coming from America, within this graphs, you could see varied responses. And this just shows how people treat, issues of energy and water security. I would want to end it there. Ruben, back to you.
Thank you, Eric. Very insightful presentation. We will have questions at the end. And if you have questions to Eric, please put them in the chat and we will go through them. I invite our next speaker, Pau Fernandez Garrido, is from the Warfish Migration Foundation, and she is one of the person that was part of the creation of the World Fish Migration Foundation and developing the Dam Removal Europe project with Herman, our director, and she's responsible for content and research of dam removal studies globally. Now she is the dam removal facilitator and tries to support the movement, which keeps growing every day. Well, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Ruben. I'm really happy to be here today. I will share in a second my presentation. I hope you can see it now correctly. So, today I would like to very briefly explain what's happening in Europe about dam removal. So we know in this moment that the regional and national governments from several European countries are removing river barriers, which means dams, weirs, or culverts. And some countries have been removing barriers since 20, even 30 years ago, like France, which is the leading country in Europe on barrier removals. And why? What are the reasons behind of the governments making such efforts? Well, there are four main reasons. Legal reason is one of them, which means that there are some countries like Spain or Austria where their national legislation states that the dam owner must remove the infrastructure if the owner doesn't use the infrastructure anymore, or if the water license is not renewed by the water authority. But there are other three very important reasons why dams are being removed: safety reasons, economic reasons, and environmental reasons. And I will show some dam removals executed due to these last three reasons. For example, this is a 23-meter high dam which was abandoned for over 20 years, and it was removed in 2014 by the Tagus River Basin Authority in Spain because the bottom gates broke in 2013 and the reservoir was full of contaminated sediment which could have flown downstream, contaminating the drinking water of the city of Madrid. So the Tagus River Basin Authority executed an emergency removal, solving the safety problem and the water quality problem. And this is a small and old weir, which was removed by the Duero River Basin Authority in the summer of 2013. Thanks to this weir removal, the authority confirmed that the city of León was not flooded with the heavy rains from the year 2014 and 2019, where the river flows levels reach 300 and 350 cubic meters per second, when the usual flows ranges between 2 and 10 cubic meters per second usually. The authority also confirmed that the cost of the weir removal was lower than the cost of the damages that the city would have suffered in only of one of the floodings. And this is another case, another example from Austria in the Tyrol area, where the Lech River is going through a severe riverbed degradation problem, which was affecting the stability of the pillars of the bridge. You can see in the left picture, thanks to the removals of 3 dams in 2 different tributaries upstream the bridge, sediment retained for decades behind the dams were released, and improving the riverbed degradation problem and improving also the stability of the bridge infrastructure. There is a long list of environmental impacts caused by dams, weirs, and culverts. One of them can be the water quality, like blue-green algae blooming, which you can see in this picture, but also a very important impact, the dramatic decrease of fish populations. We know now that European freshwater fish populations have decreased 93% in the last 50 years. This means that Europeans have wiped out their wild fisheries, which used to be a free and local food source for Europeans. But we know that some governments, like in Estonia or Finland, are making a great effort to recover their inland fisheries. And this is the case of the Parnu River in Estonia, where the Environmental Agency and the Ministry of Environment removed 7 weirs in the Parnu River Basin between year 2015 and 2019, reconnecting with the sea 3,300 kilometers of rivers and streams. And thanks to this, migratory fish population are recovering after 200 years not being present in the whole river basin. And the interesting part here is that we found out that these fishery declines are also happening in other countries like Zimbabwe, thanks to 2 key people that we know, a PhD student from Zimbabwe and a key contact under Chief Mola in Nyami Nyami area in Kariba district, we were informed that the Mola community has seen a drastic decrease on their fishes stocks since the construction of these 3 dams in the rivers. You can see 2 of these dams in these videos, and one of them actually is already partially collapsed, and the community wishes to remove these dams. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Paul. And picking up on one of the information you've shared, France is leading the dam removal in Europe. And now I will switch to French. So the English speakers, they should go to the English channel in the interpretation room. Because I will invite Monsieur Benoît Terrier. Il y a plus de 20 ans d'expérience dans la gestion intégrée de bassins hydrogéologiques. Au cours de les dernières 2 années, il y a travaillé pour l'agence de l'eau de Rhône, Méditerranée et de Corse en tant qu'expert en hydromorphologie et de restauration de rivières. Monsieur Benoît, sachant que la France est touchée de façon régulière par la fluctuation extrême de niveau d'eau, en particulier en augmentation de cas de sécheresse, on pourrait penser qu'il est nécessaire de maintenir tous les barrages existants. Cependant, l'Agence française de l'eau supprime activement cette barrière. Il y a 3000, plus de 3000 barrières qui est déjà supprimées. Pourrez-vous élaborer sur les raisons que cette pratique et sur l'avantage qu'elle apporte à la gestion de l'eau dans la région?
Oui, bonjour à tous. Merci pour cette invitation. Ce webinaire est vraiment passionnant et je suis très heureux d'être parmi vous. Alors effectivement, en France, on a commencé à effacer des seuils et des barrages dans les années 1990. Et la dynamique, elle s'est beaucoup amplifiée depuis sous l'impulsion de la directive cadre européenne sur l'eau et notamment aussi par la législation nationale. Et en France, on peut dire que restaurer la continuité écologique et effacer les barrages et les seuils, c'est devenu une des grandes priorités des agences de l'eau depuis environ 15 ans, 15-20 ans. Alors en France, on recense environ 120 000 seuils et barrages, et la grande majorité de ces ouvrages sont des petits ouvrages qui font moins de 5 mètres de hauteur et très souvent qui font moins de 1 à 2 mètres de hauteur et qui n'ont plus d'usage aujourd'hui. Pour autant, donc, ces ouvrages, ils fragmentent le réseau hydrographique et ils causent de nombreux problèmes. Alors, est-ce que c'est pertinent d'effacer des seuils en cette période de changement climatique et de sécheresse, sachant qu'on observe de plus en plus de rivières à sec pendant plusieurs mois de l'année en France? Alors, le ministère de la Transition écologique a fait une vidéo pour expliquer cela, que pour la plupart des seuils et des barrages, qui sont donc de petits ouvrages en France, oui, c'est pertinent. C'est pertinent d'enlever ces obstacles, même lorsque voilà, on observe ces sécheresses. En fait, ça peut paraître contre-intuitif, parce qu'un seuil, ça crée un petit plan d'eau, et donc ça donne l'impression que l'eau, elle est encore là, même en période de sécheresse. Mais l'eau de la rivière qui est stockée par un plan d'eau, elle va se réchauffer, elle va s'évaporer, ça provoque une perte de débit qui n'est pas négligeable en été, ça peut même causer des assecs dans les rivières, et on a plusieurs études qui l'ont montré en France. La qualité de l'eau qui est stockée derrière l'obstacle, elle va aussi fortement s'altérer avec l'augmentation de la température, et elle va devenir impropre pour la vie aquatique. Le meilleur endroit pour stocker l'eau, lorsque c'est possible, c'est dans les nappes souterraines. Et voilà. Alors pourquoi est-ce qu'on continue à effacer des seuils et des barrages? Voilà, ça permet de restaurer la continuité écologique, et l'effacement des obstacles, c'est le moyen le plus efficace pour permettre aux poissons de rejoindre des zones refuges qui peuvent rester en eau en période d'étiage sévère. Ça permet aux sédiments de passer, ça permet de limiter les déficits sédimentaires à l'aval. Les seuils aggravent aussi fréquemment le risque d'inondation en amont. Ils altèrent la qualité de l'eau. Donc voilà, ce sont les principales raisons qui font qu'on continue donc aujourd'hui à effacer des seuils et des barrages en France.
Merci, Benoît. Comment sont financées cette suppression de barrages et d'autres obstacles à l'écoulement de rivières?
Oui, Ruben, alors les effacements de seuils et de barrages en France sont largement subventionnés par les agences de l'eau. Généralement, on va financer les effacements d'ouvrages à 70 ou 80%, voire plus. Alors les agences de l'eau en France ne perçoivent pas de subvention de l'État, Elles sont financées par des taxes, redevances qui sont affectées. On applique en fait le principe pollueur-payeur ou utilisateur de l'eau payeur. Ainsi, donc, les consommateurs d'eau, les industriels, les producteurs d'hydroélectricité, les agriculteurs, etc., payent chaque année une redevance aux agences de l'eau qui utilisent cet argent sous forme de subvention pour financer donc des projets d'amélioration de la qualité de l'eau ou de restauration écologique et donc aussi voilà, des opérations d'effacement de seuil et de barrage. Donc l'Agence de l'eau Méditerranée, elle consacre chaque année environ 15 à 20 millions d'euros par an pour la restauration de la continuité écologique. Les compléments de financement, donc à ces 70-80%, sont généralement apportés par les collectivités, les départements, les régions, les syndicats de rivières, mais aussi les hydroélectriciens, les propriétaires d'ouvrages qui souhaitent effacer leur ouvrage ou les fédérations de pêche.
Très bien, merci. Et pourquoi la stratégie de suppression de barrages persiste telle qu'aujourd'hui, alors que la mise en place de cette barrage est généralement considérée comme une réponse d'événements extrêmes liés au changement climatique?
Oui, alors en France, le changement climatique, il a pour effet d'augmenter les événements hydrologiques extrêmes, donc en termes de sécheresse, mais aussi d'inondation. Il fait peser aussi une menace pour la biodiversité. Alors, j'ai évoqué le cas des sécheresses, mais je peux évoquer le cas des inondations. Lorsqu'on a des inondations extrêmes, les petits ouvrages ou barrages ont généralement assez peu d'impact sur les écoulements parce qu'ils vont être rapidement noyés. Mais on a des impacts qui sont clairement avérés, généralement sensibles sur les événements d'inondation plus fréquents à modérés. C'est là que les effets positifs d'effacement des seuils et des barrages sont le plus visibles. Mais en réalité, voilà, donc la très grande majorité des seuils et des barrages, ils n'ont plus d'usage. En France, ils étaient là, utilisés à une époque où il y a des activités qui ont aujourd'hui disparu. Mais donc, ils ont encore des impacts sur les inondations. Et puis aussi, il faut voir qu'en fait, certains de ces ouvrages vieillissent et ils peuvent même présenter des risques forts pour la sécurité et donner un faux sentiment de sécurité, alors qu'en fait, ils présentent un réel danger en cas d'inondation. On peut aussi avoir des ruptures de barrage avec des conséquences très sévères. Voilà. Donc, comme on l'a évoqué, ces ouvrages provoquent des impacts forts sur la continuité écologique, la biodiversité, le transport des sédiments, la qualité de l'eau, etc. Et donc, on considère qu'enlever ces barrières, ça rend des services à la société et à la rivière. Donc, aujourd'hui, la stratégie d'effacement de seuil et de barrage, elle se poursuit. On peut même dire qu'aujourd'hui, en Europe et en France, il est plutôt question de l'amplifier. Ça reste une des priorités des agences de l'eau et du ministère de la Transition écologique, et c'est considéré comme une mesure d'adaptation au changement climatique.
Parfait, merci Benoît. Et maintenant, je vais changer encore et parler en anglais. Vous pouvez aussi changer et choisir l'interprétation, d'accord. Uh, I'm changing now to English as we go to our next speaker, but thank you again, Benoit. It was really, really great response to the questions. I invite the next speaker, Beth Lambert. Is the director of the Massachusetts Division of Ecological Restoration, part of the Massachusetts Department of Fish and Game. Their mission is to restore and protect rivers, wetlands, and watershed for the benefits of people and the environment. Beth, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. I'm honored and humbled to be here today listening to these amazing and knowledgeable and inspirational speakers. What I'm going to do in the next few minutes is share an update on dam removal in the United States. I'm speaking to you from Massachusetts, which is a small state in the northeastern part of the country. You can see Massachusetts outlined here in orange in the northeastern part of the United States. And what this map shows is dams in the United States by age, with the darker dots being older dams and the lighter dots being younger dams. And as you can see, there are many thousands of dams in the United States, anywhere from, depending on how you count them, anywhere from 90,000 to 100,000. Okay, so the things that I want to cover in the next few minutes are just a general update on the numbers and types of dams being removed in the US, why dams are being removed, so the major drivers for these dam removal efforts, who pays for these kinds of projects, and then just a little bit about Massachusetts, where I'm from, as a case study. Throughout this presentation, I'll be showing photos of dam removal projects that my agency has been involved in. I work for a state agency. We're the Division of Ecological Restoration, and we carry out river restoration projects and wetland restoration projects throughout the state of Massachusetts, which, as you saw on the map, is just one small piece of the United States. So dam removal has been going on for a long time in the US. Most deliberate dam removals, however, have taken place in the last 20 to 25 years. Since 1912, over 2,000 dams have been removed. However, we've been seeing a growth and an upswell and a movement nationally for dam removal. And so just 80 dams were removed across the country in 2023. 25 states in the US contributed to that total number of 80 dams removed. And when we look around the United States, we see that some states have very big dam removal programs, and other states remove very few dams at all. And so a lot depends on the individual policies of each state and how much the state government supports or does not support dam removal. 2023 was remarkable because the United States began the largest dam removal project in the United States, which is the removal of 4 dams on the Klamath River in Oregon and in California. And this slide shows you a picture of one of those dams. They're all hydro dams. However, the vast majority of dams that are being removed in the United States are not these big hydropower dams. They are small dams that were built for a wide variety of reasons. And these dams are now obsolete and they have no use and they cause safety problems and they're being removed for that reason. So these bigger dams really get the media attention and the photos and the news cameras. But most of the work is around, these much smaller, less exciting looking dams, but dams that are equally important to get rid of. So a brief summary of why dams are being removed in the United States. There's really 2 reasons that come together. The first, and sort of, I think the driving reason for removing dams, really, it's a public safety reason. Many of the dams in the United States were built hundreds of years ago to power small mills. And those dams are obsolete and they have not received maintenance. And as we see an increase in storms and floods with climate change, those dams are under increasing stress and they are falling apart and they are threatening downstream communities. In the United States, dam removal is largely voluntary. It's up to the dam owner to make a decision whether or not to remove a dam. And so it's really the public safety and maintenance reasons that are prompting dam owners to remove their dams. Dams are expensive. Dam owners can be held liable for downstream flooding and damage. And so they want to get rid of them because there's no economic benefit to them. However, one of the main reasons that agencies like mine are involved are for the ecological benefits. And that includes fish passage, water quality, a whole wide range of environmental benefits. And so where you have benefits to communities and people, and you also have benefits to the environment, that's where we see these dams actively being removed. So it's really an intersection of these reasons. Who pays for dam removal? An average dam removal in the United States, not these big hydropower ones that I showed you in the beginning, but these smaller dams, like the pictures I'm showing you now, on average can cost $1.2 million more, much more if it's complicated and much less if it's a simpler project. And so in the last few years, we have seen significant federal government investment in covering the costs of dam removal. In 2021, the federal government passed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which allocated $800 million for dam removal spread among a variety of federal agencies. Those funds prioritize dam removals that bring public safety benefits and dam removals that bring ecological benefits. And so again, where you have projects that bring both, those tend to compete very well in these grant programs. Some states fund dam removal as well. Massachusetts, where I'm from, we, as an entire state, we award around $10 million per year in grants. In addition, my agency, as well as several nonprofit and non-governmental organizations, we also provide technical assistance. And so that means working with interested dam owners on a day-to-day basis to help guide them and their project through the dam removal process. That means partnering on engineering and design, partnering on permitting, helping to raise funds. And so when a state awards grants for dam removal and also provides that technical assistance, that is where you see some states having a lot more dams removed than other states. In addition, where states have strong dam safety laws that require dam owners to maintain their dams in good repair, then you also see dam removals because those dam owners recognize that they either have to spend a lot of money to maintain a dam over time, or they can do a one-time investment and remove that dam forever and never have to pay for the cost of repairs again. So the stronger the dam safety laws, the more interested dam owners become in removing their dams. Now I want to just speak briefly about dam removal in Massachusetts as a case study. And in this slide, I'm showing several photos of different dams, in the process of being removed or planned for removal. And what you can see in this picture is that all these dams are aging. They're all old pieces of infrastructure, and they are small. Most dams removed in Massachusetts and in the northeastern part of the US are, I would say, 20, between 10 and smaller than 10 meters, I would say, in general, most dams that are being removed. So Massachusetts, our small state, has more than 3,000 dams, and I'm showing you those dams in the map on the right. In this picture, they're prioritized by their ecological benefit of removal, with the red dams having a higher value ecological benefit, and the gray dams having a lower ecological benefit. In Massachusetts, these dams are owned by towns, they're owned by private companies, they're owned by people, just individuals, families that may have inherited one. Some nonprofits own dams, and then the state owns dams as well. And very few of these dams are used for hydropower. They have very low potential to generate hydropower. Very few of them were designed and can be managed for flood control. So the vast majority are just simply obsolete, causing safety threats and environmental damage. And so the way things work in our state is that state agencies like mine, dam owners, and nonprofits work together to prioritize dams for removal and then help each dam owner through the dam removal process. In Massachusetts, we've removed around 60 dams in the last 12 years. The demand for dam removal is extremely high there are likely many hundreds of dam owners that would like to remove their dams. And so the limiting factor is really the funding available through the federal government, funding available through the state, and then technical assistance available. In my state agency, we have a team of 4 people that are dam removal project managers, and they are the ones that that work in a partnership way with these interested dam owners. The more dam removal project managers we have in my agency, the more dam removal projects get done. And so that technical assistance is really critical because dam removal is engineering intensive, technically intensive, and challenging for an individual dam owner to get through. What we found, though, is that this partnership approach in Massachusetts and probably in the larger US is really the only way, the best way and the only way to get these dam removals completed. And where you have an interested dam owner, an interested local nonprofit, and state funding, then these projects can happen very efficiently and quickly. Another thing that our agency has done to try and speed up dam removal is to really try and quantify the benefits of dam removal. And these are benefits that we share with the state agencies that make the funding decisions. We try and help them understand what the benefits are to investing in dam removal through our agency and through other agencies. You know, the question is, why should we fund an agency like mine? And so one of the things that we explored was the job creation benefits of dam removal. And through our studies, we found that dam removal creates or maintains around 12.5 jobs for every $1 million spent. Other agencies and organizations have done similar analyses, and our numbers are similar to theirs. In general, every $1 million that is spent on a dam removal project generates 1.75 million in economic output. And this is very similar to other types of road and bridge construction and infrastructure projects. So a dam removal can have a significant economic benefit for the community where the project is taking place. So in conclusion, I will just update you that dam removal is continuing to grow in the United States. A lot of that is because dams in the US are aging and they're under stress due to climate change. So more and more dam owners are becoming aware of the challenges of owning a dam and are eager to remove them. Funding from the federal government is critical to helping advance these dam removal projects. States like Massachusetts and other states also play a critical role because states can make funding available to dam owners and also help dam owners in a more on-the-ground, partnership-based kind of way. And then lastly, it's really in the best interest of agencies to quantify the benefits of these projects. The environmental benefits are the things that that really stir our hearts, and that's why I'm involved in dam removal. But you know, it's often the money that speaks to others, and so being able to quantify economic benefits is extremely helpful in demonstrating to agencies, funders, and decision makers why dam removal is important. So with that, I close. And thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Beth. We will jump now to Adela. She will present the barrier tracker and the World Fish Migration Foundation, but we will open questions after this. We are a bit far behind on time, so if you want to stay and ask some questions, please stay 5 more minutes after Adela's presentation. Thank you. Adela, I think you're muted.
Okay, sorry. Hello, everyone. Very nice to see you, and thank you so much for being here today. I'm Adela, and I just want to briefly present you a couple of things today. And the first of them is the Barrier Tracker app. This free app is really easy to use, and it's been developed by Swansea University together with the Amber Project. And it's been implemented during years in Europe, and now we want to expand it also to Africa. So my colleague Angelica created a special video for today that I want to share with you.
Hi, I am Angelica, a World Fish Migration Foundation volunteer. I am currently based in South Africa doing my PhD on the migration ecology of our key migratory species. As you can see, our rivers have a lot of weirs and dams. But we are unsure how blocked our rivers actually are. The Amber app was initially developed for European rivers, but it can be used in Africa as well. All you have to do is take a picture, take a pin location, and we will be able to map out how blocked our rivers are in Africa. This is important to help us focus on key areas to establish free-flowing rivers in Africa.
Thank you so much, Angelica, if you are there for doing this video. So as you see, it's really easy. Everyone with a phone can use it. And yeah, you can help us to track all the barriers that there are in Africa. And in a second note, I just want to let you know, in case you are not yet aware of this year's World Fish Migration Day. It's coming on the 25th of May, so we are less than 3 months ahead. And during this day and this month, many events are all around the world will be celebrating migratory fish and free-flowing rivers. There are many ways that you can celebrate this day, doing different activities that engage your community, your colleagues, your family, your friends. It's all about celebrating free-flow rivers and the migratory fish. So join us, and you can register the event in our website or send any question to my email. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adela. We are approaching our finale, but I would like to share with you what we will be doing in the future. First of all, we will have an open call for articles. Let me share my screen just a second.
Can you see it?
Yes, I can see that. Thank you. We will have this call for papers. It's a collaboration with the African Journal for Aquatic Species. And we would like to invite all of you that have, if you have information, if you have data that can be shared with us through articles, scientific articles, please join this call for paper and submit your articles that will help us bring and compile all the information that is required to start building this movement in Africa. I would like to thank all our speakers. If you want to stay 5 more minutes, please stay. We will respond to questions that were being written in the chat. But thank you to all our speakers, the organization team, the sponsor, the Mulago Foundation, the attendees, and also the translators for making possible this amazing webinar. It was a really insightful, a lot of questions, a lot of great presentations. And our idea is to start building this movement in Africa as we did it in Europe. And for that, we will need your support. If you want to be part of the network, please contact us. We will add your information in our network list. If you know where dams are or any other river barriers, please download the app, add the information, and put it there where we can access and know where the rivers in Africa are being blocked. And the focus for this movement in Africa is to remove obsolete river barriers. We don't want to remove every dam. Understand that we are not here to remove every dam and jeopardize African development in terms of energy, in terms of agriculture. We want to remove the obsolete ones that are that can bring some risk to people, to nature, the ones that are unnecessary, as we are doing in Europe, in the US, as you've seen in the past presentations. Thank you all, and I wish you a very, very productive rest of the week. Thank you. If you want to stay a bit longer, we can respond to few of your questions.
Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you, Paul. I have some questions here. I will jump into it. Diane, I'm not sure if you are still there. You've asked what are the energy production alternatives to hydropower in South Africa, Ethiopia, and Kenya? I don't know if you have anyone here on board that could respond to this question.
I could respond to that. Kenya has about, I think it's more than 85% of our energy is generated from all renewables. So part of it is hydroelectric, but it's not the larger part. The larger part is actually geothermal because we are on the Rift Valley. Then we have the largest wind farm in Africa, is also in Kenya, which has just come on, I think, since last year. And we also have solar. So Kenya generates most of its electricity in that way. And the hydro dams are actually being stopped for the purpose. So energy generation is no longer the purpose of hydro dams. And in fact, Kenya is talking now of nuclear. And dams, however, are being built for agriculture, for irrigation. So there is an increase in the number of dams, and a lot of the Vision 2030 plans are hundreds of new dams. So it's something we really need to look at. And if the idea of the ladders is a really exciting one. If we can't stop these dams, then we should really be looking at that technology of the ladders to allow fish to migrate.
Thank you, Dr. Paulo. And as I've seen that you've put in the chat that if anyone is interested in working on migratory fish and restoring rivers and dam removals, who are willing to be part of the film from the wildlife documentary purpose, please be in contact with Dr. Paula.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Another question. This one is in French. I will read it in English, as most of our speakers are English-speaking speakers. It is possible to see species recolonizing after dam removal, the migratory corridors that had been abandoned by fish that could no longer pass because of dams. Are there fish using them again? This is a question from Musayu. I don't know if there is any speakers that would like to respond to this question. It can be examples from other parts of the globe, Europe, US.
Ruben, what do you think exactly means the question, that if the fish corridors are fish passage?
No.
Fishways?
After the removals, if fish are going back to river, to the
Okay, yes, there are several cases actually. The key point is to remove the barrier before the fish species it gets extinct, which this is what has happened, for example, in Spain, where we had several fish species got extinct because of dams. But there are other places in USA, or for example, Estonia, Finland, where after the removal, they are seeing fish populations coming back to the whole basin after 100 and 200 years after. So yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Another question. This one is for Benoit, but I'm afraid that he left. Is from Erica Mendes. France is the lead country in Europe on dam removals. However, they are still interested in building dams in other countries, in Africa in particular, both through state-owned companies and private companies, Total Energy, for example. How can we pressure the France government to stop colonizing African rivers? This is a good question. We know how the global economy works, and unfortunately, we still have dams being built even in Europe. I can just respond to this question. It's not that easy to try to convince countries to not build dams, because unfortunately it's still being seen as a valid solution for water, for energy, but we are still applying the same old solutions that is being applied for more than one century. And focusing on dams is just try to do the same thing all over, expecting the same results. We will have energy eventually, yes, if the river flow keeps flowing with the climate change. But when we have so many dams in rivers, we start having impacts that will not be resolved with only a simple dam removal. You will need to do a full river restoration to solve the problems that were created with the dams. So what I would advise you is try to put pressure on your governments. If French companies are doing this, it's because they are receiving the green light from your governments, from decision makers in your country. So the idea is to force your decision makers to understand that this is not the best solution. This is also one of the outcomes that we would like to get with a potential dam removal African initiative. How can we support all of you to understand that dams are not the valuable solution, and dams cannot be seen as a valid solution for so long. We have to come with other ideas. We have climate change that was not being taken into account with the construction of the dams. So now we have to find solutions. We have to be creatives and try to find other ways to produce energy, to improve agriculture. And we have many partners here in Europe. Some of them were part of this webinar, and they are trying to mainstream nature-based solutions for these situations. So there is a lot of solutions. I see that we have two hands raised. It's possible to unmute and ask your question? We have to be quick because we are already behind time. Mr. Mwamba?
Bonjour à tous. Bonjour.
Bonjour, Monsieur Mwamba.
Je m'appelle Mwamba Nyembo. Je suis directeur exécutif de l'autorité du bassin du lac Kivu et de la rivière Ruzizi. Eh bien, je m'excuse de venir un peu tard parce que j'avais des difficultés de connexion, mais j'ai saisi l'essentiel des présentations. Je suis très heureux et je remercie les organisateurs pour nous avoir intégrés dans cette discussion qui est intéressante. Mon bassin du lac Kivu et de la rivière Ruzizi se présente comme suit. Le lac Kivu se situe au milieu de la République démocratique du Congo, du Rwanda et du Burundi. Alors, le lac Kivu est relié au lac Tanganyika par la rivière Ruzizi. Et cette rivière Ruzizi Il y a des barrages hydroélectriques, notamment il y a 2 qui sont fonctionnels et une troisième qui va être érigée dans peu de temps. Il y a aussi des études prospectives pour construire un 4e barrage sur la rivière Ruzizi. Mais le problème, c'est quoi? Tout récemment, il y a à peine une semaine, il y a eu des côté de Rwanda, au niveau de la cité de Bouozi, et ce glissement du terrain a bloqué le passage de l'eau de la rivière. Et pendant 2 jours, et ça a bloqué cette eau et ça a créé des inondations tout aux alentours. Des maisons, des plantations ont été détruites. Cependant, l'eau s'est frayé un autre chemin en creusant des fissures à travers la République démocratique du Congo, si bien que le lit naturel de la rivière Ruzizi a été déplacé pendant 4 jours. La difficulté que nous avons pendant ces glissements du terrain qui a bloqué le passage de l'eau de la rivière, c'est que tous les barrages hydroélectriques qui étaient en aval ont stoppé la fourniture de l'énergie. Cependant, nous sommes en train de mettre un programme pour stabiliser les bassins versants afin d'éviter ces glissements de terrain pour ne pas bloquer les passages de l'eau. Alors, la rivière Ruzizi fait que les poissons du lac Tanganyika, certains poissons du lac Tanganyika, montent avec la rivière Ruzizi pour pondre les œufs. Alors, s'ils trouvent les blocages, alors ces poissons vont disparaître parce que leur nid pour pondre les œufs, c'est dans la rivière Ruzizi. Et quand ils pondent des œufs, les alevins, dès qu'ils grandissent, ils reprennent la route vers le lac Tanganyika. De même, il y a des poissons qui vivent uniquement dans l'interaction entre le lac Tanganyika et le lac Kivu. Et ces poissons peuvent migrer vers le lac Kivu, tout comme ils peuvent descendre vers le lac Tanganyika. Ça dépend des saisons. D'où, avec le programme que je viens de voir, que vous venez de nous présenter, nous allons nous impliquer davantage pour faciliter vraiment la mobilité des poissons migrateurs à travers la rivière Ruzizi. Parce que ça dépend vraiment donc de la survie des populations pour que ces poissons puissent circuler librement à travers la rivière Ruzizi. Alors, je vais me mettre vraiment en contact.
On n'a pas beaucoup de temps. Si vous voulez.
Merci beaucoup. J'ai terminé. Et
Parfait.
merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Beaucoup de cette initiative que nous allons.
Merci pour votre temps. Et on peut parler après par email et on peut changer d'informations après.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Ian, I'm not sure if you're English or French speaker, but if you can do it quickly, we are already far behind time.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for this webinar, and thank you to Paula Kahumbu, who alerted some of us through a WhatsApp group that this was happening. I didn't know in advance. I'm happy to be a part of this group because I serve as an ambassador for the Convention on Migratory Species. And last month at the Conference of the Parties hosted by Uzbekistan, a lot of decisions were adopted by consensus. So the 133 countries that are party to that convention, including most of Africa, are now bound by those decisions. And some of them are very pertinent to what you've been discussing today, both in terms of renewable energy infrastructure, restoring connectivity, and specifically the plight of migratory fish species that have declined by 90-something% over the past few years and are in a much worse state than the terrestrial mammals or birds, which most people think of when you think of migratory species. I put one or two comments into the chat box, and in particular, the reminding people that rivers depend on rainfall, and rainfall depends on evapotranspiration of water vapor into the atmosphere in the watershed, which is often powered by the tropical forests, which ties the fate of the fish species to the fate of the primates and the elephants that disperse the seeds that grow into trees that keep the rivers flowing. So I love the focus on keeping rivers flowing. I do urge you to look at the cms.int website for the recent decisions. I put the link to the papers relating to freshwater fishes, and I'm very keen to continue to be a part of this conversation, having spent a lot of time in Africa and loving your rivers and their ecosystems. So thank you very much.
Thank you for this insightful comment. We can definitely keep in touch. I will share our website in the chat, but we will also send an email after this webinar with the recording and everything that was shared during the webinar. We want to start building this movement in Africa. And with your support, we will definitely do it.
Thank you. The other thing I should say then, in terms of building support, is I'm head of conservation for a new charity called EcoFlix, which is like Netflix, but for the environment. It's a non-profit. It's free to schools and universities worldwide. So if any people still on the call are a teacher or a lecturer, go to ecoflix.com and sign up, and you can use the films for your educational activities. But if this group of people have films that they'd like to find a wider audience for, then EcoFlix would be interested in partnering with you. So yeah, do as well as the CMS, look at ecoflix.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We end here the webinar. I appreciate your inputs, your support on this. And now we will